Okay, so today we're going to start a topic and about API and web services, and we're going to start from the scratch and get familiar with the tools and why we uh, do testing on API and what are the features, what are the requirements, and what concept should be learned, and one concept should be have in pocket before going to the market. So the agenda we have is, what is client and server? And also we're going to get familiar with the three layer of an application. And also we're going to get familiar with the client server architecture. And also we're going to see what is the difference between API and web services. Okay, so, and if you guys think that any part do you think that you're having issue understanding, please just let me know. And that's all. Okay, so I'm gonna start from very basic. Uh, let's just start from this topic. What is so first of all, we're going to start see what is client and what is server. So in an application that we are using, any application like Java or whatever you guys have used or used. So an application has different layers. So this is the first layer. We call it UI, or also we can call it front end. And then there is another layer here, which is called database. So in this layer, we keep the data or database. In here, so the UI application, it's also known as a presentation layer. So in this layer, like it is called client layer. So it means everyone who is a user, they use this side. And then in database, all the information are stored here. And imagine if I want to use an application, then I would interact with the application. For example, this is the application. If I want to use it, everything inside is stored in a database. So the reason we are using API testing, so whatever I use here, imagine if I want to use this a small program or whatever. So the user interacts with this UI, which is user interface. So, and then the data is stored is in database. So if I do testing on UI, whatever UI, imagine if I want to open a website, okay, I'm gonna go to Facebook, for example. If I want to go to whatever website I want to use. So if I want to use, for example, YouTube, this is a UI. So if I want to do testing on this, whatever testing I do on this UI, that is called that is called, so this is UI testing that you guys studied. So whatever I do, and for UI testing, we use Selenium, like you guys studied. For example, we use Selenium and whatever. But for this is the database. Whatever information I need from this database, I need to uh, get it from the UI. Okay, so in the database, we have different kind of testing. If I want to do testing on this UI, I use Selenium, and then plus Java or other things. And if I want to do testing on a database, so usually we have MySQL, usually we have Oracle, and also we have like a SQL Server. If I want to do testing on the database. So, and what is the testing concept on the database? It means, so I'm going to check the relation between data. So I'm going to see if the tables are working properly, the functions are working properly or whatever. And if I want to check or test the UI, so whatever we studied or you guys studied here, this is the UI. If I want to see if I can click on this element, if I can open this file or whatever, this is UI testing. So this is the first one. Then this UI testing, we can use Selenium. And here we can also use MySQL, SQL Server, whatever to test the database. In here, in between, we have another layer, and so this layer is called, this is front end. This one is a business layer, and this is also the database layer. In this layer, uh, it is also called API. So in this API, if I want to do something, get information from the database, if I do something, then this layer gets the order, the request, and then hit the database. After it hit the database, then the database responds to this layer, and this layer then responds back to the UI, which is like any application that we are using. So if I want to use this layer and test it, so I use Selenium or whatever, but if I want to use or test this layer, this is API testing. So what is API? API plays the role between the database and the UI interface. So what it does, it just whatever information the user wants to get from the database, first the API receives the request and then hit the database. Then the database respond back to the to this, and then this gets the data, then return it back to UI. Let me just show you an example here. So if I want to go to the Google, so let me open this. So this is a request, right? So let me open this that you guys understand. So this is the page. This is the page. So what is this page? What is this page source? This page source, when I send a request from UI and the UI to API, then this API. So let me just tell you. So for designing UIs, guys, developers use JavaScript or JS, and then they use CSS, and also they use HTML. This is the front end. This is front. For backend, which is the middle layer or business layer, we use to develop it. We use Java, we use C#, or also we use Python. For database, and there are also, as I told you, MySQL, SQL Server, or whatever. So these are different applications. So this middle layer, which is business layer, and this database layer, these two are fit in a backend. When someone says backend, it means business layer and database. And this business layer, when we want to do testing, instead of going and do testing on UI, which is like web element that you guys studied with Selenium, whatever web element you do. If I want to do testing on a web page, so this is a web page. So I do if this works fine. I do if this works fine. Let's see. I click on this. I put something here, then I click on this. So what happened? If I want to do this, this business layer send this request to the database. See, this is the request. And this request has different parts that I'm going to go through everything. So this request will go and hit the API first. And then the API receive the request and then hit the database. The database then respond back to the API. But it responds back, the information would be like this. You will not understand what is this. And here, the UI, which has been, then this UI use HTML, which has been built with, this UI uses HTML to change these response to such response that the UI can understand it. So without this API, then you are not going to understand what is the data coming from database. So this UI then send the data to the user interface, and this user interface, which is built for user, then changed by using HTML, then the user can understand what is that data. If the user is not using the UI, then the data would be like this. So the user cannot understand what the data is overall. And when we do testing on this part, this is called API testing. And so we use different tools. And this API testing, so we have SOAP, and also we have REST. So I'm going to cover everything for you guys. So what do we use? Why do we use or do API testing? It is very easy because this is very fast. This is very fast regarding the UI, because when you hit the database and the database responds something back, the data first comes to the API or the backend. So, and then instead of just getting the data from user interface, then we just do it, we just check the data here. So we don't need to do the testing from the UI. So this is very fast, and the tools are different. For example, we use different tools for checking or testing the API, and we use different tools to check and test the UI. So usually UI is the front end, and also the API is called the backend, and API and the database, these two together, they are called as a server. So if someone says server, these two together are server. And any information that you want, if somebody wants, imagine if I send a request. So I'm a user, I click on this, this is a request, I need it from the database. See, this website is in the database. So, and then you're gonna start. So this is the domain that every website has. After this is a request. This is another information. This is called path, URL path. And after this slash, this is the string, or curious string, we call it. This is the curious string, this is the path, and this is the domain. So whatever information I get, this process will be done. So first the UI had send the request to API, the API had the database responds back to the API, and then the API sends the information back to the UI. So now testers, instead of doing and start going and testing the UI, which is the front end, then they just test the API. So by testing the API, we have different tools here that I'm gonna tell you guys. So the tools, so this is the client and this is the server. And what is the client here? Always the UI is also called client. And these two together, as I told you, these two are server. The backend and the database, they together, they play the role as a server. And this one is always the client. And also we can call it front end, client, or application layer. This is the backend. And also I have them here for you guys. So this is the front end, and also we call them presentation layer. The second one, application layer, or the business logic, this one. And here, the backend, this is data layer, because we have whatever we have is inside this database. And then this API plays the role between these two. So it translates the data from, it receives the request, hit the database, and then respond back to get the data, and then send the data to UI, and then UI translate that data by using HTML so the user can understand. So if you want to see what the data is, so this is the data, this is the user interface. So a user cannot understand this, but the user easily understand this. So here, then by using HTML, this UI translate the data that in a way that the user can understand what is going on here. If I'm the user and then the response is back like this, so I'm not going to be able to understand what is going on here. So this is the main concept that we are going to learn. So now there are three layers of application. Always remember this. The first one is the client, and this is client UI or presentation layer. The second, the middle here, we always need this to use the database, the data. So just get the request, then responds back. This is called also business logic, and also application layer. This is data layer, and also we can call it database. So this is very important. And also client server architecture that I told you guys, what is API and what is web services. So I'm gonna tell you guys a bit later this. So I'm gonna use a PowerPoint presentation for now. So just make it a bit easier. Okay, so what is a client and server? So if you see, we can have different clients, so many computers. And here is the internet, and here is the server. So a client is a computer, hardware, device, or software that accesses a service made available by a server. The server is often, but not always, located on a separate physical computer. So this server may be separate or may not be separate from the client. So this imagine the database, like nowadays, if you hear AWS Cloud or Azure, so the clients are separate from the server. Now, what is a server? A server is a physical computer dedicated to run services to serve the needs of other computers. So it provides services to these other computers that are called as clients. Depending on the service that is running, it could be a file server, database server, home media server, print, or whatever server we call it. So again, a client is always use the front end. And then here in the middle, we use the API concept. This API concept translate the data, and that client can understand it easily. So, and here, so client server architecture, we have three things here. So the first one is this is the first one, this is the second one that we have. Tier architecture. What is tier architecture? We only have one computer and one file server. The computer, what I mean by computer here, if I come, let's see, if I come here, this client and this database, these are in one computer, inside one computer. And then if this is called one tier architecture. It means the client, whatever client you have there, and the server, they're all inside one computer. And the second one, this is client computers, and this is database. So these two are separate, and but there is no backend application, or there is only client and database. There is no API, or there is no business logic here, and they only lost this. And they only, so you see, there is no this is client and this is database layer. These two, they communicate like not through the API or not through the backend. And we don't do API testing on tier architecture 1 or 2. We only do API testing on an architecture that has client, business logic, and database. So whatever the client, the user sends sends a request, the business logic, which is built by Java, Python, C#, receives that, then they hit their database. The database again send back the information to that business logic, and that business logic can send the information to the client. So if we do testing on this part, that testing would be called, so we use like web elements. It means we are just dealing with the web page. This is web page. If I want to start testing this, these are all web elements. So the tool I use, or we use like different tools like strips or other things like we studied. So now any application layer that doesn't have any architecture that doesn't have the business logic here, we are not going to be able to do the API testing. So again, sometimes it's possible to do API testing on a two-tier architecture, but it's very, very rare. Mostly it happens on this. So this is the reason we do API testing. Okay. And also, what is the difference between API testing and web services? Remember, API, application program interface, it's not a web service. Web service also kinds of API. So let me just give you an example, which is a bit easy. Um, so what is API that we can do? So for doing API, so what is API? API is we can achieve it by using jar files. There are some jar files. These jar files, they have different classes. So like class, these are all classes. Class 1, 2, and also class 3. And these classes each, they have different methods inside, like WebDriver. So method 1, method 2, and method 3. But this is API. By using these classes, we can do API testing. And since this is a jar file, we do not need internet in most cases. Internet is not used, or is not needed. Also, I have I created something just to show you guys. Internet is not needed because this is, we are not using a URL. This is API that we use a kind of jar file, we install it, and that jar file has different classes. And by using those classes, we can, and those classes have methods, and by using them, we can just um, test the API. So this is the first thing that we have. And also, we always do testing on the third layer application. They have the front end, back end, and database layer. So they're all in one system. So API testing and web services testing. So what is the difference between API testing and web services testing? When we talk about API, so the API can be in jar files, and we do not use internet to do testing on API. But when we talk about web services, we always need internet, and those web services, they are in servers that are located in another location, and we need the URL to do testing on those services. So who provides that URL? Usually developers, they provide the URL that I'm going to talk about it. So, and then by using that URL, we can have access to the web service and then do testing through API and server. So the main difference is that API, we can do API testing through jar files that we do not need to connect to the internet mostly. But web services, we need to be connected to the internet and also through URL. So web services also kind of APIs available on web services only. We need to access them by using URL. Whatever URL you use to access a server, that's called web services, and whatever API that is a programming interface that use it. So imagine if I open this. So I was checking, this is a database, but this is through jar files that I'm going to show you guys. This is a database, like it has 100 things. So this is the format of API. So, and then by using this, for web services, we have two kind of web services. The first one is SOAP. And then this, what is SOAP? SOAP was introduced first. It is an old kind of API. And then web services, and it only uses XML file. Remember, the SOAP was introduced first, and then when SOAP was introduced, there was no REST web services. So there are two kind of web services: one SOAP and one REST. So SOAP was introduced first. It is an older version of that, and it only uses XML. So by the lack of functionality that SOAP provided, then they developed REST services. There, it is more popular, and it supports different uh, kind of file formats like JSON, XML, and HTML. So what is SOAP and what is REST? Remember, they are web services, kind of web services. They are not tools. We use different tools for these two. Remember, they are not tools. REST and SOAP, they are not tools. We can use Postman, SOAP UI, or whatever, but these two are not, they are the main two types of web services, which is SOAP was introduced earlier, and then they developed REST. So, and also we have kind of concept here. We use Postman for REST and SOAP, but normally we use REST with Postman and manually. And also these are tools, Postman and SOAP UI. SOAP UI is a tool that when SOAP was introduced, normally they used to do SOAP API testing on it. And then we can use SOAP UI to do SOAP API testing and also REST API testing. But mostly SOAP UI is used for SOAP API testing, and Postman is used for REST API testing. And also with Postman, we can use SOAP testing, but this is possible, but normally they don't do it. But using SOAP UI, we can use both. So, but normally with SOAP UI, we use SOAP, we do SOAP API testing, but with Postman, we do only REST API testing. So, but these two, using these two, we do manually. And also, there is another one, REST Assure. What is REST Assure? REST Assure is like Selenium. It has jar files. We download it to Java, and then it has like classes, and then when we use that, it's like then we use Java, TestNG, Maven, Jenkins. But this is REST Assure that if you guys want, then I can cover this. It's a long process. So again, we have two kind of web services, SOAP and REST. SOAP was introduced before, only support XML. REST, which is more popular now because it supports different versions or kind of files. And for both these two, they have different tools. Postman is very famous for. With Postman, we can use REST API testing and also SOAP, but normally we do the REST API testing. With SOAP UI, which is a tool, but SOAP is a web service type. We can do both REST and SOAP, but normally we do SOAP. Okay, now let's go to this. As I told you, this is the architecture that we have, client server. So the first client, this is a presentation layer. We can use HTML, JavaScript, and CSS to build this. And the middle layer, which is built by using Java, Net, C#, Python, C++. This is application layer or business logic layer. And the last one, which is data layer and our database, it is built through MySQL, Oracle, Postgres, SQL Server, or MongoDB. So this is, and now the API, instead of, if we do testing on this, if we do testing on this one, then it is called a user interface testing, or we need to use like Selenium because we interact with the elements. But when we do testing on this layer, this is API testing. So API testing or web services, again, we have two kind of, we use SOAP or we use REST to do these testing on this. This is API. And this layer, when you send a request to this layer hits the database and then get the response back and then send it to the front layer. This is how it works. But what are the advantages of this? When we use this API testing, it is very, very fast or much faster than the front layer. So that's why we call it API testing. Okay, so now we go to the second part, that what is API? API means application program interface. It enables communication and data exchange between two separate software systems. As I told you, this is a separate software system, and this layer also, this is a separate software system. By using this API, which is in the middle layer, we can, and these two layers can interact with each other by using the middle layer. It enables communication between those systems. A software system implementing an API contains functions, subroutines, which can be executed by another software system. So it provides information that can be executed by either front end and also data layer. And this is another thing that I can show you guys. API testing is entirely different from GUI testing. What is GUI testing? This is presentation layer, user interface, and mainly concentrate on a business logic layer of the software. So API testing only or mainly it is done on business logic. What is business logic? This is the business logic. So we don't have to do anything with this. This testing won't concentrate on the look and feel of the application. So we only, so when we do UI, so we talk about the look, we check if the the web elements are functioning properly. But when we do the business layer, we never mind about the look and the feel of the application. Instead of using a standard user input keyboard and output in API testing, you use software to send calls to the API, get output, and note down the system's response. So what does it mean when we use, okay, let me pick something from here and tell you this. When we use API testing, so we send response request and then we get the response. So whatever response we get, this is the output we receive. So whatever response we send, so how do we do software testing or API testing? By two things. One, sending requests, and another thing, getting the response. When we get the response, then, or that is also called output, so then we can realize what if the API is functioning properly or not. So again, business layer, application user interface, and API testing works only here, not here. If it works here, this is GUI testing that we use with Selenium just to interact with web elements. And if you want to do database testing, this is something different. So we use other tools just to see if the tables or they are functioning properly or not. API testing requires an application to interact with API. In order to test an API, you will need to use testing tool to drive to the API that I showed you. Write your own code to test the API. So when you write your own code, it means that you use REST assure or automation. But normally we do functional testing that with API we have like 4 commands or 5 commands. Mostly 4 commands, but more than that. Okay, what is web service? And I'm going to show you this. This is very easy. What is a web service? Web service available over the web enables communication between application over the web. This is the same thing that I showed you guys. It provides a standard protocol format for communication. So why we use it? Platform independent communication using web service, 2 different application implementing. We can talk to each other. Okay, let me just show you something. This guy is the client. What is the client? Let's see. Okay, this guy is client. If I want to talk about the application, this is the user interface. This is the client. So API, it only works by sending request and getting the response, guys. Remember this. API only, when you hear the word request and response, it means you are doing the API testing. Okay, a client order food. What does this mean? Let me go to this part. So it means I open the Google web page. And then this guy who works here, this is API request. So we consider this as a whoever works in the restaurant. So this guy, it can be whoever this guy is, it gets the request, which is now this guy worked as an API in the middle layer. Then send the order to the kitchen. What is this kitchen? This kitchen is the server or the database layer. And then this chef may tell this guy, okay, the food is ready, or and in other word, this chef responds back to this guy. Who is this guy? This guy is the API. And then this guy responds back to the client, so, or the UI. And then whatever chef told him, he's gonna say, okay, the food is ready, or he's gonna hand over the food or whatever. So this API works between 2 other softwares. The first one is client, and the second one is a database layer or the server. Always API receives the request, and always API send the request to the server, send it back. Here, kitchen is, it works as a server. And then the database here, or the server, responds back to the API. And then API responds back to the client. So this works as a business layer to just like the relationship between the client and the service is based on the API. Here, instead of doing testing on this, we will automatically test the API. We test the API by using SOAP and REST. So these are two type of API testing, but we have tools to using this. So now this is the concept. Now we don't have anything with the client, with the user interface. We only test the API. So this API is responsible for getting the order. Again, when you hear the request, the word request and the word response, it means we are talking about the API. So it gets a request and then send the request to the or hit the database or the server, get the database response back to the API. Then the API is responsible to send the request back. Okay, if let me just delete this. It's like this. If okay, if I open the Google page again, if I write something, whatever I write here, now I'm the user. Okay, so this response is back from the API. Now this is the API response. So I'm going to show you what these mean. This is the request that I explained. If there is no API, then I would get the response like this, that I'm not going to be able to understand. So then the API is going to send the response back to the user interface, and the user interface, by using HTML, then the response would be clear to the user. This is how API works. So web service is an API wrapped in HTTP. So it means when we talk about web services, we always talk about the URL, an HTTP, which is an HTTP URL. I'm going to show you how. So when we talk about web services, it means we need to have internet, and then we need to have a URL that is HTTP URL. All web services are API, but APIs are not web services. So API can be done by not using internet. API are in the format of jar files, but web services. So API are web services, but API may not be web services. What does that mean? It means API itself can be accessed without using internet, without using HTTP URL. But web services, we need to have internet connection to do web services, because we need to access to the server, which is not located where we are. So we need to have URL. Web services might not perform all the operation that an API would perform. A web service needs a network, while an API does not need a network, as I told you guys. So API can be done by using jar files and no internet. But when we talk about web services, it means we are talking about two concepts. So we have request and response, but how do we do that? By using an HTTP URL that I'm going to show you guys. Okay, and now type of web services that I told you, there are mainly two types of web services. The first one is SOAP web service, simple object access protocol, and the rest is another web services, which is also representational state transfer. So this is web service, this is SOAP. Okay, just to tell you guys that this SOAP is different from if someone says SOAP UI, this SOAP UI is a tool. But this SOAP, remember, this is types of web service. It's something different. By SOAP UI, I can do SOAP testing, and also I can do REST testing. Okay, and by Postman, if I say Postman, by using Postman, I can do REST testing, and also I can do SOAP testing. This is, and these two, sorry for the note, these two are all both manually. And also regarding automation, if someone talks about automation, we only use, I don't know what's wrong with this. Let me see. So if someone talk about automation, guys, that's REST API. That's REST Assure. REST Assure is a library like Selenium. So Rest Assure is like Selenium. It has jar files, and then we can create a framework by using Rest Assure, and is also automation. Remember, this is only automation. But for manual one part, we have tools for both of them. So with Rest Assure, we use the this is automation. For manual part, we have other tools. I'm going to show you. This is Postman, and also we have another tool, SOAP UI. Okay, what is the difference? First, they introduced SOAP UI. SOAP only this SOAP only support XML, but REST support XML, JSON, and also HTTP and other things. So SOAP was introduced earlier. It is older, only support XML. We can do SOAP API testing manually by Postman and also SOAP UI. Postman is used manually, but with SOAP UI, we can also do automation, but it is very, very rare. It is very rare. Okay, now this is the concept. Two type of web services, SOAP and REST. These are types of web services, not tools. But we use tools to use these methods or these types of web services. And for automation, only there is a REST Assure framework that we use Java, we use TestNG and other libraries to create a framework. And it has jar files. It has jar files we download for Java, like WebDriver, remember. But for these two, we have other tools that we do manually, Postman, SOAP UI, that I'm gonna show you guys. Okay. So web services, as I told you, SOAP first, it is what's first introduced, older XML, REST, more popular, and also for again for they have tools, but Postman and SOAP are very popular, and this is REST Assure that I told you. This is API testing. With REST Assure, we test other APIs. Remember, and it's only automation. Remember, and we use Java, TestNG, Maven, Jenkins, because I'm gonna go through this. If you guys are interested, we can create a framework using this. And also, again, what is client and server? Any computer that we are using, which is a user UI interface, this is a client. Server, it is backend and database. An application has 3 layers that we studied: client server architecture. As I showed you guys, this is client server. The client is different, and the backend, which is like business logic and application layer and the database, they are also considered as a server, remember. So this is client server architecture. And also, what is API and what is web services? When we talk about API as a web services, but web services cannot be API. API is used with, we can use with jar file, we can also use without internet. But when we talk about web services, it means we want to interact with the server. If there is no internet, it is not going to work, not at all. And when we talk about services or API or whatever, we talk about how do we let me tell you this, how do we interact with this? We only test the API by using tools and by sending a request and getting a response. That's all. This is API testing. Nothing fancy. We send a request, we get a response. As a user, a response is back to the UI. Okay, and also whatever application that has 3 layers, and we as an API, we do that, as I showed you here. Whatever, so there is one 3-tiered tier, 2-tier, 1-tier. We have nothing to do with this because they're all in one computer. And this one also doesn't have a business logic. And we only do API testing on a architecture or client architecture, server architecture that has client, business logic, and database server separated. So I'm use testing on this by sending requests and getting their response. So this is what we need for the beginning. And also, let me show you something else. So was I clear? Let me know if you guys, if you have a hard time understanding, please, because I just.
It was pretty clear for me.
So, and again, layer of application, we can call them front end, and also we can call them presentation layer, application layer, or business logic, and backend. So, and again, these two, I think we are done with this. Let me just move forward. Okay, let's go on this. Okay, I'm gonna go a bit deeper inside, and let's see if you guys are not confused. Okay, so now I'm gonna show you guys another concept. So components and web services. So there is something called WSDL, Web Services Description Language. And also there's something called UDDI, Universal Description, Discovery, and Integration. What are these, and why do we use any of these? Okay, before this, let me show you something. Okay, so there are two kind of services. There is one, and there is two. So if you go to this slide, so we have two things. We have a service consumer and also service provider, that the one who provides the service. Well, let me go through this. If I'm the consumer, so if I'm the consumer, service consumer. So what does service consumer mean? Anyone, so service consumer or client. And this is the service provider. So service provider, these when they want to provide the service, they store the web services, or they keep their web services in a place called UDDI. This is UDDI. Okay, and then when I want to, let me just make it a bit simplified here. As a client, so there is a place UDDI. So they keep the service here. They are service providers, remember, service providers, whoever they provide the service. So they keep the service here. As a client, when I want to use the service, I use something which is called WSDL. And WSDL stands for Web Services Description Language. So by using WSDL, I access those services. This is WSDL. So what is this WSDL? This WSDL is an HTTP URL. Very easy. I want to simplify it for you. This wizard is an HTTP URL. By using this, I can access these services that the service provider has. They keep it in a place called UDDL. And the consumer or the client, by using WSDL, and that through an HTTP URL, they access these services. This is the very basic concept. Let's come back here. So what is WSDL? WSDL stands for Web Services Description Language, an XML-based language that describes web services and how to access them. So, and UDDI stands for Universal Description, Discovery, and it is an open internet-based, so they keep it everywhere, all the services there. specification that offers a directory service for storing information about web services. So if you see here, this is the web service, and this is the UDDI. So I'm the consumer. I find this is the service consumer, okay? And this is the web services. They keep it there, and I get it through the WSDL. And after I get it through the WSDL, this is the SOAP. This is the communication between these two. So this is via XML file. So all the consumer get the services through the WSDL, and this WSDL we can do it through an HTML file that I'm going to show you guys. This is a basic concept that you guys need to know. And here, this is the client. This is the UDDL or UDDI. And here, the service provider, they keep the information here, or the servers, and the client, by using WSDL, they get the services. So what is this WSDL? This WSDL is the request and response. Very, very easy. So the WSDL is the request and response. So this is the service provider. This is the client. By using the request and response, we get all the information. So again, UDDL is there is a place that the service provider store all the information, or web services, and the client or service consumer, they access the information through that by something called WSDL. And this WSDL, it means they request information and get the response back. This WSDL exactly means the same. And if I want to show you the same thing, so this is the service provider. They publish the information here, and then as a service, then this is service consumer or client, we searches for the information, and then by using a URL from the registry, we get the information, and then this is our request through WSDL, and then this is the FIFA, and this is the response to the client. So this is the how it works, the architecture. Very easy. Okay, so let me just talk about this. Okay, WSDL is the web services description language. We get the information, and UDDL, the service provider, always keep the services there, and through WSDL, which is request and response, we access those information. Very easy. And now let's come here. SOAP will use XML file that I told you, and REST use HTTP URL. So I have it available. I don't want to confuse you guys. Remember, when we talk about HTTP URL, it means we are talking about REST. And that HTTP URL, when we want to get the server, how do we use it? We send the request and we get the response. So I'm going to go through it, but not now, because you may get confused. Again, API, no internet, we can test locally, available in jars. Web services require internet, we can test them by sending HTTP requests. Remember, when we talk about HTTP requests, we are talking about web services, because with API, we can also use jars, and we can do it locally with no internet. But if you talk about the web services, if there is no URL, if there is no internet, it's not going to work. And the URL is HTTP. So tools available for it, we have Postman. Remember, we have two kind of web services, SOAP and REST. We have Postman, we have SOAP UI, we have JMeter, and Pilka. So Postman we do manually for both, but mostly REST services. SOAP UI, it was older, we can do SOAP, but mostly SOAP, but sometimes REST we can do. JMeter is only done for performance testing, only for performance testing. And also we can do testing. We can also use this through browsers that I'm going to show you. But with browsers, we cannot do validation and other things, so we normally don't use it. So API testing process. Let me just go through this. What is API? So these are the web services tools. Again, SOAP UI, Postman, and REST Assure. So if I show you this, REST Assure, as I told you, only for automation. This is only for automation. but and also we can get it through jar files. JMeter is we use it for performance testing, only for performance testing. JMeter, very popular. SOAP UI, we normally do SOAP and sometimes REST. Postman mostly REST. Sometimes also SOAP. We can do SOAP, but mostly REST. And these two are manual, guys, remember. So we do them manually, manual testing. And also we have Karate, which is a bit getting famous, and Catalan. But remember, these three are very, very famous, and they are tools. They are not type of web services. They are tools. Rest assured, it's very difficult. Not that difficult, but we can only do automation and use the jar through Java. We use the jar files like Selenium. We studied Selenium. This is like that. JMeter is another concept from Apache, and it is we do performance testing. So, and mainly we use Postman and SOAP UI to do manual testing, and we can also do SOAP and REST with SOAP UI, and also we can do SOAP and REST with Postman. But normally with Postman we use REST, and with SOAP UI we use this. Okay, let me show you something else. So I'm not gonna confuse you. So I told you, I think this is type of, there are two types that we studied. And let me show you this. So what is HTTP request and what is HTTP versus HTTPS? So what is HTTP? As I told you, let me just, so this is the client side. This is the business logic, and this is the database. So the difference between HTTP and also HTTPS. Okay, for HTTP, when this is client, this is application layer, and this is database. So when you want to hit the database, so this is, imagine you want to Google account. This is your username, this is your password. So you write your username and password. These two will hit the API, and then the API will hit the database. If it exists, then the API responds back to the database responds back. Let me, I hate this, oh, sorry. So the database responds back to the API. So if you have the information, then the API responds back to the user. If you have that information in database, whatever you say, for example, this is the username and this is the password. If you have the information, so then you will be able to log in because you have the information in database. So first you send the request, and then the API hit the database. Then the database responds to the API, then the API responds to the user. So now user can log in because these information are inside database. Okay, but what is the difference between two? When we talk about web services use only HTTP. It means when you send your information here, if you write here, for example, Ahmad, this is the username, and the password is 2020. This information will go to the API, and then this request will hit the API, and then the API will hit this. So these are not going to be changed. This is going to be the same thing. But when we use HTTPS, by the time the information is going through the API will be encrypted. What is encrypt? It means that Ahmad will become to some characters like this, A, B, C. No one can understand that. Will be encrypted. And then the API will hit the database. When get to the database, the information will be decrypted again. Then the database will respond to the API, and then API responds back to the user. But before going to the here, then the information will be encrypted again, decrypted again. It means if I show you here, um, this is the information exactly. So main difference between HTTP and HTTPS. When it is HTTP, this is the example, www whatever. This is the password. The information will be the same without password encryption, nothing. So if then they can be seen by hackers, HTTP. But when we talk about HTTPS, it stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. By the time the user enters the data when it hits when you send the response to the API will be the information will be encrypted like this. And then once the information hit the database and get back to the user, before getting back to the user, then the information will be decrypted. It means the user can see the information. But within this process, if it's HTTPS, hackers are not able to see it because they are encrypted. But when you use HTTP, the information will go to the server as it is. So it's not going to be encrypted. So it means it's less secure than HTTP. So, and also I have them here for you. So when we talk about web services, guys, remember web service always use HTTP, always use HTTP, not HTTPS. So, and so this is HTTP request that we have, but not an HTTP, not HTTPS. Okay, let me show you something which is very, very important here. Okay, just remember this, which is very, very important. Okay, I'm gonna show you something very good. Okay, let me show you something. So we talk about this. Okay, let's talk about URLs. What is, sorry for this. Let me close this. Let me check the view. Okay, what is web services? This is very easy. So web services, let me go to the MySQL. I want to show you something very, very easy. Postgres. I think you would learn it this way easily. Okay, so this is Postgres that you guys studied. I have a lot of information here. I just want to show you something. Why we use this and why we use. Okay, this is so with Postgres, I directly there is no API here. Okay, so let me and also show you another thing. Close this. I hate this. And come here. I'm the user. This is the database. As a user, sometimes I insert data. Sometimes after I insert, then I update my data. As a user, I do this. After I update it, sometimes I select my data, whatever I have. I use the command select. Sometimes, and also I delete. So this is this is database. Remember. So and also I'm the user here. So by using these commands, I interact with the database. So what does a user do? A user insert data. a user update data, a user select data. What is select? So we studied select command. I think you guys still remember. So this is MySQL, and I'm interacting with database. Okay, I select a star from a store item. So this is a database called a store item or whatever. I select information. So I'm just giving you this example just to understand it. Sometimes I insert data to the database. What do I mean by that? So let me just go back here. Insert data. See, insert into sold item. This is a column, and then this value. I insert this. Sometimes I delete information. So I have a lot of delete here, but you guys know. So select delete. What are these? These are the commands that are a user directly communicate with the database. A user directly communicate with the database. But here, instead of database in web testing, we have server. How do we communicate with this server? With server also, we insert data to the server. But here, we don't use insert, we use put command, post command, not put. So post. When I say post, it means I'm inserting data to the server. But when I talk about, I'm not talking about database, I'm talking about the server API. So insert is the same thing. With MySQL, I insert. So insert this or whatever. Let me insert. So I want to create this information. Insert the value like ID, mouse, whatever. These are all the information. I insert or send data. So this insert is the same as post, the same as insert. Update is the same as so let me just start from when I insert data, then I can select my data. So select when I insert the data, then I can select my data. Here we can use get with web services. It's the same as this one. And also we can delete the information from the server. It's the same as this one. And also update, instead of update, we have put here. It's the same as this one. But we are all interacting, remember this, we are all interacting with the server API testing, not a database. It's still we are the user. So this is by using these commands, we used REST API testing. We do REST API testing. Sorry about my mouse, I hate it. Okay, but we use these commands. So we post, we put, we get, we delete. So now I'm going to tell you why the difference. What is the difference between these two? Remember, if you want to insert information to the database, we have to have information. What information you want to enter, to insert. So that's why when we use post, we need to have a body. If I don't insert information to the database, how can I select it? Let's get back to the database. So I didn't insert this information, TV, Samsung, whatever. How can I then type select this? Because I have not inserted yet, so I cannot select it. It's the same thing. When I post something, then I can use get command, get request to see what I posted. Then I use put to update what I posted. Then I delete what I posted. So it means when I don't post anything, I cannot do any of these commands. So we use these for using REST API testing, and it's the same commands that we use for database in MySQL. So by post, we insert data. By put, we update the data we inserted. By get, we select the data that we inserted or we posted, and delete is the same thing. And also there is a shortcut for this. Let me see if I have it for you guys. Just put it here. Yeah, this is, we call this GERT operations. This is GERT operation. So what is this? This is, let me just go here and show you. Okay. So what does this mean? It means by posting, I create something. Okay. By putting, I update something. This is update. By getting, this is the thing we have here. So C is for create, U is for update, D is for delete, and R is for I see if I don't forget it. I for is like so this is the third command that normally we do. It means by post we create, by U we update, by D we delete, and by R we retrieve data. Yes, R stands for retrieve. It means so by C by let me just put blue. By C I create post. Okay. By U I put update, and then by R I retrieve data. It means I get the data, and also by D I get the data. So this is Kurt. Remember, this is very important, then you will never remember this one. So by these commands, we use the REST API testing. We send the request and we get it back. So I don't want to put too much things on this. So type of HTML request. Excuse me?
Rafizan?
I can hear you.
Rafizan, do you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes, is this only me not seeing your screen or that's for everybody?
It's me too. I thought my
Yes.
net is too slow.
For me as well.
Oh, there you go.
Can you hear now?
Yes, yeah, we see
Sorry,
you now.
can you see it? Okay, so remember, Kurt commands.
Excuse me, I think your battery running low.
Yes, yeah. So by Kurt command, it means we are creating, we are posting, and also we are updating the data. It's like the same with the SQL, but remember here we are interacting with a server, not with database. Okay, let me just go a bit further. So again, so REST services using HTTP protocol, not HTTPS. Type of services. By post, we create C. This is C, we post, we create something. By get, we retrieve data. It means we get the data. If I want to compare it with MySQL, we use select, see? By put, it's like update. This is you. It's like the update in MySQL and also with get in commands. And also with delete is the same thing. So all of these are called as CURT operations. Okay, now I want to show you something here in the slide, which is very important. So what is the web services, guys? Remember, web services are, what is API testing? What should we do as an API tester? So here is a document. As an API tester, so you need to know what should you do. So the developer gives you a document, which is called a specification document, that it shows you what should you test and what should be the result and what should be the information. So I don't want to talk about this a lot because I have it another format that you can understand it easily in an Excel file. So, but remember, so what should I do when an API testing? I get a document which is called a specification from the developer. In that document, everything is written there. So what should I do? What should be the response? What should be the request types? What should be the response? And everything that I need. I'm going to talk about it. So now we have, when someone talk about the REST for web services, we are talking about these four commands. So a service represents a resource that can be accessed from the web, commonly makes a different HTTP request. So what is the web services? How web services are done? Web services are done through HTTPS command, HTTPS request. So, and these requests, we can call them as a CURT functions. Post, by using post, we create resources. By using get, we retrieve from the data from the server. By using put, we update the information that we created. By using get, we retrieve the information that we created. And by using delete, we delete. It means if I don't use post, I cannot use any of this because we have no information. Okay, another thing, HTTP method. Remember, when someone says HTTP methods, they are get, post, put, and delete. So what are these for? These are for sending requests and getting response from the API. And let's come here. Okay, let's come here. I think you can understand. So I'm the client. So there's one guy client here, and there is another called service producer, service provider. And the client, as a client, I send I send the HTTP request to the server, and this server hits the database and then responds back. So now, what should an HTTP request contain? Before this, let me go here and show you first this. So whenever I send an information, guys, this is very, very important. My URL is made by different things, but my URL is made from domain, from URI, and after that, query string. Let me come here. So let's come here and see this, very important. Let me open another file. Oh no, let me. So I'm gonna show you something, but don't get confused. Yes. Okay, so this is a website that you guys can go and practice. That's easy. And so no, not this. This may confuse you. So what is the information here? A URL contains a domain. So the domain shows where the service is located. Let me just, this is very important. This shows where the service is located. The service is located in UK, okay? After this slash, forward slash, it is URI. What is URI? Sorry. Remind me to get a mouse by next time. So domain, so what is the HTTPS request? HTTP is made from 3 parts, very important. The first part is domain, website domain. It shows where the server is located. After this slash, forward slash, there is another part before this question mark, okay? This is URI. What is URI? Let me show you something. So the domain shows you the domain location. The URI is the information. So let's see. This is the server. Okay. This server. So there is another server inside this. Okay. Here it shows. So this server is inside this information, and this is inside other information. These are all folders. These are all folders, guys. Remember these 3. So it means this is the main server, and there is a location called this. This is the green one. There is another location. So these are 3 locations here. So and there's another folder here, and this is the 3rd folder. Whatever the name is, inside this 3rd folder, whatever the name is, and here. After this question mark, this is query string. This is called also path parameters or URL. Remember, path parameters or URL. After this question mark, we have query string. This query string is made of a key and value. This query string is made of key and value. So by using this query string, you navigate to your information. It means inside this, so this is the main server. Inside there's another folder here. So this is the first folder. There is another folder here, okay? And this is the information at the last folder. So now we are on inside this, okay? The last part, this is always key and value. Here, I'm looking for a name. So look for someone that the name is this. It means the name is the key and the value is whatever. And another name is the key again, and the value is the key. So this is the first domain, the physical server where your website is located or hosted. URI, remember the URL is the entire part. The second part after the first slash is URI. The identifier which maps to file on your server. Remember this. And query string, part of the GET request to easily pass in the value to the customer to us. So here we use the in here we do our testing. So I'm looking for someone or somewhere. So then we put the whatever information we need, we put in query string. This is the thing. Note, URL stands for Uniform Resource Identifier. This is URL, and URL is made of three things. Okay, now I'm going to show you this differently, and let's go here. So I think now you're a bit familiar with the concept now. Okay, here, now that you are familiar with the URL, let's talk about this. Now the client send the HTTP request. This request, what is this request? Again, this request can be create, post, get, update, or whatever. When a request is sent to the server, it should have three things. First is URL. What is a URL? URL contains three things: domain, URI, and query string. Remember, URL consists of these three things. And this URL can have headers and also payload. This payload maybe is in JSON or XML. What is payload? This is very important. In API testing, payload means data, guys. Very clear. Payload, it means data. It means it depends to my request. If my request is post, it always contains payload. What does payload mean? I think you guys, let me go to a file and show you. So what does payroll in API testing? Payroll, it means data. So let me open this. Remember, I don't want to talk about this, but remember this. Whenever it depends to you. Again, I go back to MySQL. Whenever I want to insert data, I need to have payroll. This is payroll in MySQL, but in MySQL, it is called data. This is called data information. This is the same data, but here, this data is called payroll. It means it depends. When I want to use post, it means I'm going to create something. When I want to create something, it means I need to have a URL. When I want to send the HTTP URL, this is the URL. Whatever URL you want to set. See, this is the URL. I want to show you something very important. We just studied. This is before the first /, this is domain. We studied this. Now, after this, this is, what is this guy? Remember, I just told you. This is URI. What is URL? It means inside this server, there's a folder API. Inside this API, there is another folder users. Okay, now this is API. Inside this user, now this is query string. There is a page. Now, after this, I put my criteria, what to test. So inside this, I want to test a page which is equal to 2. And if I come to here, back again, query always has name and value, query string. And if I come here, the page is name and the 2 is value. So I want to check inside this server, inside the folder called API, another folder called users. I want to validate a page which is the value of that page is 2. And this is called query string. This is called API URI, and this is called my domain. So when I send this request, whenever, if my, it depends to my method, not method, to my action, what I'm gonna do. This is the body. What does, if I'm using post, it means I need to have a body because I'm creating something. Even when here, if I want to create something, insert data, create a column or a table, I need to have data to be inserted. It's the same thing in API, guys. I'm just giving this example just to make you make everything clear. So this is the URL. Again, the URL has domain, URI, whatever comes before, after the first / and before the question mark is URI. This is the information. It means inside this server, there's a folder, this, inside this folder, there's another folder, inside this folder is another folder. Inside this folder, I want to validate a name, a page that has the value 2, an employee that has ID of what, a house that has the number of what. This is like this, the same thing. Okay. Now, if I come here, payload, it means data. Then it depends to what HTML HTTP request I'm sending. If I'm sending post, this is a very important topic. If I'm sending if I'm sending post, remember, if I'm sending post, for all of these, I need to have URL. All of these URL. That this URL has 3 parts. I told you. If my request is post, it needs to has if it's post, it needs to have a payload. What is payload? Payload means data. If you want to create something, I'm saying, oh, create this table. I need to send data. What is the data here? Let me do, but if it's get, I don't need to have payload. So HTTP request, it means when you send a request, if it's post, it needs to have payload. It means to data to be created. If it's get, there is no, it doesn't have anything request. If it's put, it needs to have payload, because when it's put, you want to send some information to update them. Okay, let me show you. This is post. So account ID 1, account number, this is the name, this is the information I'm sending. This is the payload I'm sending to create this information. It means when I want to use post, I use my request should have payload information. If it doesn't have payload, nothing will be created. This is the first thing. If my method is get, what does get do? Get retrieve. So when get retrieves, it doesn't, you don't need to insert anything to get. It's like MySQL. When you select, you get data. You don't want to send data. When it's update, you have to send some information to be updated. So when you use post, or you use okay, when you use again, when you use post, and when you use put, your body has to have payload. It means data. This is the first thing. But this is the client send request to the server, then the server hits the database. The database responds back to the server, and the server responds back by HTTP. So let's see. If it's post, then the server says, okay, this is the response code. It was created successfully. This is the response payload, and this is the success. These are the information that you get. We are going to learn this. But it depends. Imagine you created this, and then when you created this, you will get, okay, this is the status code. You created something successfully. This is the payload. The information was created, and this is the successful message. When you get something, you do not need to have anything in HTTP request. You will get it in HTTP response, because when you send a URL, let me just show you this, just make it clear. So let me go to the website here. I use get. See, I use get. When I use get, I do not need to pass anybody anything. I just get the information, guys. Okay, this is get. It means my body doesn't have to so when I send get, it means I don't need to pass information. So the request is empty, but I get something in response. This is the same as this one. When you use get, your request is empty. You only have URL, because it returns information to you. So the response has body. This is the information. This is the response. The response has body. But let's use post. When I use post, I need to have payload. What is payload? Data. Create this. And this is the response. Yes, 201, it means it was created. Whatever you put here, then it was created. But when I use get, it means my request doesn't have anything, only I get the response here. My request doesn't have anything, I only get the information in response. But when I use post, I need to put payload. And here, when I use put, when I use put, I say this information, update this, then you will get the response. So for post and put, you need to provide payload. Payload, it means data. For post to be created and for put to be updated. But forget that you want to get something which is already in the database. See, you only use get, and it gives you the information. So this is the information. This is let's see, another get. This is another get or whatever. Get. So only you don't have to put request. Again, let's come back here. What is this, guys? Can anybody tell me? This is the domain. Okay, this is the domain. From this forward slash, okay, from this forward slash tail here, this is the
That would be the path.
this is the path parameter, or another thing I just told you is URI. After this, it means that I'm putting my query string. If I put this here, if I put this, copy this link and put it here, see, now this is a HTTP response. How do you know? This is a domain. From this to this is a, so these information that are in a folder called API, and then I want to get the information which is called unknown, but number 2. What does this do? Let me get the information. So this is the get all the users. There is a page inside the API. There is another folder called user. Inside that folder, I want to now this is query string. Query string has the name and value. I need the page, all whatever is inside page 2. Another time, this is list users, all the users. But here, single user, again the same thing. I just want to see the information of the person who has ID number 2. This is validation. Whatever validation we have, guys, let's come back here. Whatever validation we want or we have will be done here only in query string. Only because this is the only place you change information to get. It's like here. If I come here back, so if I come back here, by changing this, I'm getting different information. First, I page equal to query string, all information from page 2. Give me all the users. Here, single user. So I only, the user is still there. The user is still there. This is because this is API. This is this is URI or path parameter. After the question mark, this is my query string. By changing this, I get different information. All the users page, okay. Only single user, I change it to 2. This is another thing, user not found, so you don't have this information. And this is, you get all the information by changing this. Here, you even, I don't want to page number 2, I don't want user number 2, I want everyone, all the resources. It gives you all the resources, see, all the resources. So it means, this is very important, that's why I'm making examples. Okay, now, again, so by passing this URI, I'm saying that I want to get the information. So I just created a guy by name, by ID name, okay? And then by providing that ID is name 1, and then by providing that ID, I'm getting all the information from that person, okay? So when I use get, I don't want to have anything in my HTTP request, but I will get something in my response. When I use update, I need to have payload in my request, and then I will get something in response. So the response includes the status code if it was successful, the response payload, the information you get. This is the response payload. This is the response payload. Let me just go here. This is the response payload, whatever you get. Let's go post. This is what you send. This is the response payload, the information you receive, the status code. This is the information you get. And when you use delete, you don't have to have any body here. Only use delete, and then the information will come to. So, and then I updated number 1. Again, the same thing. And this is the information. So, and I think it was clear. And let's go to Postman, not Postman. Let me show you something. This Excel file is very, very helpful. Let me just show you something, and that would be enough. This is the specification document that you guys, that you will get it from the developer, guys, okay? Inside this, there are some information. This is endpoint. What is this endpoint? Who can tell me? This is the same. Inside this specification, the endpoint will be provided. Endpoint, it means domain. If I come here, endpoint is domain. See, this is the domain. Endpoint, it means domain. Endpoint will be provided. Type of method will be provided to me. So I was told, and this is the domain, and after that, I will use this URI. This is the, so check page 2. Only get the information of user 2. Post, create this information. Create this information. This is what I get. Remember, whenever I see get, there is, the body is empty, because what does this mean? Because when I use a get, nothing will be in the HTTP request. I will get the information in HTTP response, because I get the information. I don't want to create. Yeah. So get doesn't have a body, but when you want to post something, it means you want to create. You have to put the information. So I want to create name this. The job is this, and this is success respond. So this was successfully created. So success payload. This is the information, or success message. See, this is a success message, and when you come here, this is the information. Failure response. So a status code. When you want to create something, you will get the status. So I'm going to teach you this with Postman. I'm just giving examples, okay? Not, this is not the lesson. This is the status code, and this is the parameter. So what the hell is this? Anyway, so what is the information here? The comments. Comment, it means whatever the developer you were asked to see if the test was successful or not. Okay, I got the information. This is the URL URI I sent. So this is the get command, and then what should be happen? This URL, or this complete URL will return a list of users in the page. Okay, and then the status code should be 200 to be successful, and this represent page number. 2 represents page number, and query parameter equal page 2, or query string is the same thing. So when I let me just give you this. When I so I think I just did it. When I come here and use the same thing, it means page 2, and it gives me the information. So by this page, this is a specification document. This will be provided to the tester, and here everything will be explained: what to do, what not to do, and what should be the expected code. Here, if you see in front of post and put, in front of post and also put here, you will have body. See, it means when you use post or put, you need to send something. I want this to be created. So then this is the message was created, success, and create new record in database. This will be creating a new record in database. Post, put, then I need to provide again to the body just to update it. And this is the message, update an employee record, whatever. So I'm not going to teach you this, but remember, in front of get, for get and for delete, we don't have to put anything inside the body. Only we put inside the body things that we want to create or we want to update. We already have them, or we want to create them now. Okay, so this is what we accomplished. And here, so an HTTP, what does an URL has? Again, a URL, let me just show you. When I want to send a response to a URL, what does a URL have, guys? it has domain. When you send the URL, after domain, URI, after that, Fury string. This is a URL that you send to, this is very important. And after that, it should have headers or payload. What is payload? In API testing, payload is data. Payload equals data. This is very helpful. So when you use post command or put command, you need to put data to your what? Here, to your HTTP request. To your HTTP request. You need to have it. But when you use get and delete, you don't need to have anything, because when you use get, it means you want to select which was already created. Only information you will get them in your HTTP response, not your HTTP request, which is here. And it depends what kind of information you take. So the client will send the request, the server then will hit the database send back the information to the server, then the server responds back to the client. Then what is the response included? It included a status code, respond payload, the information, and a string message, if it was successful or not or whatever. This is we create, we also get the information that we already created, and we want to update the information, and we want to delete the information. For get and for get, see, this is get. We do not need, no need for payload, no data. When you want to, no data, no data. For what? For request. Only for request. But we need data, we will get data for response. But for post and put, we always need to provide data in payload that we're going to study in Postman. So this is the concept that we need for data. I think I've painted a lot of crazy things. Okay, let's come back here. Let's finalize it, guys. So again, here was HTTP request. HTTP, this is HTTP. Let me just, so HTTP domain plus URL plus query string. This is domain. This is the URI, and this is the string. So you change this. Always there is a name and there's a value. You will, by changing this, you perform your testing, not by this. This is the information. It means this is the domain. Inside this domain or server, there is a folder called API. Inside that API, there is a user. This is the address, which is called URI, remember. And by changing whatever comes after the question mark, you do testing. So you delete the page, you only put user dash user slash 2. Only you want to check the information from user 2 or user, I don't know, 10, whatever you put. So by changing that, you do testing. You see the page. If I say the page, for example, if I page 90 or whatever. So by changing this, you do the testing. And remember, when you get 200, it means it is get successful. Whatever information you got, it is successful. Let me go to Postman and just give you a quick example. This is get. Okay, so this is get. When I want to get something, that I, let's see if I get or not, because I didn't create. So what is the nothing found because I didn't create? First, I need to create. How do I create it? Let me just quit. So here, no, because this is a local API. I didn't create it. Let's see if it creates. But this is local. Yeah. So I post something. I think I created something. But what is the information? I need to put something in the body. Remember, this is the information. This is the payload. I have something as payload. I use post. The response is 201. So for creating, the response is always 201 if it's successful. So what I just created, I created something. My computer is crying. So I created something 101. Then I want to get the information 101. So and so if I get the information successfully, so I'm not gonna talk about this, then I'll get the get successful. It should be 200. If I delete something successfully, it should be 400. Okay. If you come to this URL, and if I delete something, let's see, and delete 204 is always the response. 204. Whatever you delete successfully, 204 is the response. And if you update something, update, for example, 200 is the success for get and also update. For post, if I create something, it's always 201 if it was successfully created. This is 201. And also remember this. And I'm gonna put this in the chat. This is very helpful. Just go and practice. This is gonna help you guys. This is the URL. Not this. Just go create, delete, and then, so I didn't cover Postman, so I just talked generally today. Why do we use API testing? And for the next time, I have created an API which is local, but this is a local API I created. So I may go through this, but for now, just why do we use API testing? So by using API testing, we only focus on the middle layer, which is a business logic, and we don't have anything to do with the front end. And that was the concept. I hope you guys didn't get tired. And I don't know, any questions, or maybe suggestions?
John, thank you so much, brother. The session answered all those answered questions. It was really good. It was really helpful.
It was not what I wanted, but so anyway, I hope it helped. So this is the basic concept, but I'm gonna start Postman for you guys, very, very easy. But I'm gonna teach it differently from you guys studied. So, but today I think I decided to go through API first, and just what is API? Why do we want to use API testing? And then I hope you guys got at least something, and I hope it was worth your time.